But what we're trying to do is gain 500,000 followers on Crowdcube, because there is a movement and we've given it a name. It's called individual collectivism. And individual collectivism is the way the world is going. And Dawn spoke earlier about making choices that were right for her individually, but understanding that still business had to be done. And what happened in the 1940s and 50s, when we just come out of a world war, was we understood the collective. We understood that giving up some of our rights for the greater good was the thing to do, because we were building a new society. And then in the 80s and 90s, we got lost in the individual, where we didn't care about anyone else. Who we cared about was us. And we cared that we were going to climb over the bodies and heads of everyone to get what we wanted. But now, driven by millennials, and millennials, for those of you that don't know, were 20 at the time of the millennium. So some of them are 38 and some of them are still growing. So millennials and Generation Z are going to make up the 50% of the workforce by 2020. That means they're the economic power in the world. They're the people with the spending power. And individual collectivism really is the name that I've given to the way they're thinking already, where they're happy to give up something of what they've got for the greater good. And if you look at the way the world has moved, what millennials are saying to businesses and brands is, don't just not do bad, actively do good. And they are choosing brands that actively do good in the world, because they recognize that businesses and brands are the super citizens of the world. They are leading thinking and activations around the world in the way that some governments are not. And some of you will remember the survey that was done a few years ago, where certain brands were trusted more than the police, more than governments, more than the clergy. And that's the movement that we're trying to collect and drive now. Individual collectivism is the name that we've given to this movement, where the world's problems will be solved not by governments, by an empowered and enabled consumers who are driving change. And one of the things we're doing with Declan and the GSI is to build a peer-to-peer network with technology that allows them to connect and invest. That individual collectivism is already having an effect on the way brands thinking. There's a tsunami, there's a storm of transparency coming, driven by things like the Me Too movement, driven by blockchain, where everyone knows what everyone's done. And brands and businesses are getting their collective house in order. The things that they used to do, they can't do anymore. That is driven by consumers. And we, the man and woman in the street, we want to be part of that movement, but also leading that movement. And that's going to be one of the important drivers for Blueprints as we move through the next couple of years.
Thank you, Kevin. And as we move over to this next slide, you will see that we are looking not just at online events, but we are looking at the major gatherings that we are going to have once a year. And people are going to, we're actively changing how people are going to be gathering together, how stakeholders are participating in solving this challenge. But before we move to Q&A, we are going to leave you with a challenge. Is there anything you want to say on this?
Yeah. What we really want to grow is a team of supporters and advocates. And there's a little challenge for you around the Christmas dinner table, around the parties, around the gatherings that you are going to be attending over the next couple of weeks. Because we want some feedback on what Blueprints is doing. From my own personal experience in the last year and a half, every time I've explained what Blueprints are doing, 50-50, economic development, ensuring that the indigenous people in the world will get the fair value of their assets. There isn't one person I've shared that story with who doesn't say, that's amazing. And what we'd like you to do is share our story with your tribe, with your families, with your friends, with your relations. because we want to start letting people know what we're doing, how we're building a movement behind 50-50 economic development. That's the challenge to you, and we're going to convene again on the 15th of January, and we hope you'll have some feedback for us.
Thank you. Thank you. And so